this is John with My First Ukulele, and today's topic is all about how to make your own ukulele chords. This video will be pretty in-depth, so if the information doesn't really sink in the first time, feel free to watch this back as many times as you need, and take your time to get to know this subject matter because it took me a while to figure this out as well when I went into music school. So today we'll just focus on the major and the minor chords because those are probably what you're going to be using the most whenever you're playing your ukulele. So firstly, let's start with a math problem. No, seriously. I'm going to give you the following numbers and I want to see if you can arrange these in mathematical order. Your four numbers are 8, 1, 5, and 13. I'll give you a moment to put those in order. The numbers again were 8, 1, 5, and 13. All right, so your answer should be 1, 5, 8, and 13. And we'll talk about that in just a second. It's going to have to do with making chords today. So let's go ahead and take a look at the C chord. So the C chord from the ceiling to the floor, 0, 0, 0, 3. So that's how we make the C chord. Sounds like that, right? Let me ask you this quick question. What are those notes? Take a little bit of time if you need to think about the different notes that you have. If you know how to tune your ukulele, you probably know the strings of the ukulele, right? So from the ceiling to the floor, we have G, C, E, and C, right? So that is the C chord that we usually use. So bear with me. It might seem like I'm going to get a little academic with you, but once you know this, you can use this information forever. All right. So I want to show you where those notes exist compared to all other notes within an octave. And if I numbered all the different notes within an octave, we'd have a total of 12 before we get back to the same note, right? So if I list off the different notes starting at C, they're going to be the following. You have C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and then we get back to C again. And if you count all those from C, so C1, C sharp 2, D3, D sharp 4, etc., then you're going to notice the code that we unscrambled today when you started could actually work for any major chord, but specifically here I made it work for a C chord. So if you see that diagram that I just put up there, it lists all the letters and the numbers that go along with those. And that's what makes up most major chords that you have. The 13 there is just optional. That's just an octave higher. In the case of the C that we played, it's actually the 13. So we have a low C down here. That's the 1. And then we've got the 13 up here. All right. And the other ones, G, here is 8. And then the E we have is 5. So if I go in order, we've got 1. This will be 5, 8, 13. And we're going to move these numbers around a little bit later or talk about them in a different way. But I just wanted to show you how those all exist within all 12 notes within an octave. All right, so let's do this with another chord just to check your understanding. So let's go ahead and make an F chord. And the F chord that I want you to make is like this. From the ceiling to the floor, it's 2, 0, 1, 0. All right, let's play it. One more time. All right, let me ask you this. What are those notes? Okay, we can start with the easy ones if you'd like. Usually this is a G, right? But if we go a little higher, we're on an A now. And then we have a C, we have an F, and we have an A again. So there's actually two A's within the normal F chord. All right, let's see if we can put numbers to those letters that you just figured out, right? Our number 1 this time is going to be F and not C. So we have 1. See if you can figure out the other ones. Okay, if you remember, we had a 5 and an 8, right? So we have F. 5 is A. They're the same note. The C is 8. And then we don't have another higher F that we're playing right now. So we just had those two A's. So here we go. So if I review them again, we have 1, 5, and then 8 or 8. The C is actually lower than the F in this case. Right? So that is the F chord that we have. So in a gist, that's how you construct a major chord. You've got your starting note, which we call the root, and then you've got 4 half steps higher than that, you've got your third. 3 half steps higher than that is the fifth, and then 5 steps higher than that is the octave from the F. Okay, now we're going to change terms a little bit. I just wanted to show you how those exist within all 12 notes within the octave, okay? So don't worry, I know that took a little time to figure out those notes, but it will get much faster in time with practice. So before we change verbiage, let's go ahead and take a look at a minor chord. The only difference between a major and a minor chord is that when we had the 5 before, that's going to turn into a 4. So for instance, if we had a C minor chord, instead of an E, we'd have to have an E flat in there somewhere. All right, so let's check for understanding. Let's make a minor chord. A minor chord. It's a bad pun, but I had to make it. So A minor chord is 2 0 0 0. Sounds like this, right? So that's our A minor chord. And let's try to figure out what those notes are. So from before, you remember this is A. We have a C. We have an E. And we have another A. All right, and let's put those numbers that we had before on there, right? We have our 1. We have our 4, which is the thing that would change. We have our 8. And we have our 13 or 1, however you want to say it, right? Now, to make an A major chord, we have to make this 4 a 5. So we're going to raise it up. So that's a major chord instead, right? Okay, so don't hate me too much. We are going to change some verbiage now. Most of the music world does not use these half steps like we did today. They usually use major and minor and perfect intervals. Okay, we'll talk about that. Let's go back to the C chord again. I call the distance between the notes 1, 5, 8, and 13. Put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that in just a second. Okay, so our original intervals, again, were 1, 5, 8, and 13, right? Let's replace the verbiage there. So if we had our 1, let's just call that the root, okay? So root. And then if we go to our 5 we had before, let's call that a major third. So what I mean by that is like 1, 2, 3, that's a major third. And then this will be 4, 5. We call that a perfect fifth. And then we have an octave, right? Some people call it a perfect octave. Okay. So I'm going to run down the names of what we had before. So we had 1 through 13. And now we're going to talk about major and minor intervals now. Okay, so the 1 we're just going to call root. The number 2 we had before we're going to call a minor second. So that would be like C to C sharp or something like that. And then the major second would be C to D. Then we have a minor third. That would be C to E flat. A major third, C to E. We now have 2 intervals called perfect intervals coming up, right? So perfect fourth, if you're wondering why they're called perfect, we can talk about that in a future thing, but that's C to F, okay? The next one we have is called a tritone, which is C to F sharp or C to G flat. That has an interesting story to it as well. Then we have a perfect fifth, C to G. We have a minor 6, which is G sharp here. Then we have our major 6. We have our minor 7. And our major 7. And then finally our octave. All right, so that's a lot. That's a lot of information. If you need to review some of this, there's some really great apps out there that you can go over some ear training and these intervals, like what they're called, when you hear them or when you see them on paper. One way that I practice this is the Rick Beato music theory course. There's some really great ways to play back these intervals or see them on paper and identify those. But there are also a lot of other great apps for your phone that you can use to practice getting to know these things. So we'll have a continuation of this thread, and the next one I'm going to go over with you is about scales, how to construct scales on the ukulele. And actually scales and chords together really do make sense, like how those will work, or like what chords you should use as you're playing through the different intervals within a scale that you're playing. For instance, like C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So that's combining the chords that could work with it and also the different notes that you have within a scale. So we're going to talk about that pretty soon. So just to wrap up, basically what you should get to know are, firstly, make sure you know the open string names on the ukulele. After that, you need to also know when you make a chord what notes you're making, right? And after that point, you can start to modify the chords just slightly, and it'll change what type of chord quality you've got there. That's going to really help you construct some of your own chords. Sometimes when I'm playing a song, they'll recommend a chord shape, and I know that they just had a computer come up with it because I think I could find a better one sometimes, or in a different position on the ukulele. We have 4 or 5 different positions on the ukulele for the same chord. They're just voiced differently. That will probably also be a future video that I'll do. So I hope you liked today's video. If you feel like it was a little bit over your head, feel free to watch it a couple of times just to let the information sink in. But I promise if you keep studying and keep learning, this stuff will make sense to you. You can also try this on a piano. I found that learning this theory was a lot easier on there for me to see than it was on a guitar or ukulele. So just a little tip there for you. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Hit like and subscribe if you like the My First Ukulele videos, and I'll plan on seeing you at the next one. Bye-bye.